Hello, everyone. This is Lee Andrews, and I'm laughing because just before we were I forgot we were going live because Debbie Levitt, if you haven't met her, is also a very highly trained singer, vocalist in opera, and it was just serenading us with that gift. So, welcome everybody to Live with Lee. This is the second one today, and thank you for coming back a second time. Today, we're actually going to do something for one of my initiatives, which is a Akatame, and relaunch the site. And boy, I kind of gave you guys the secret before it even happened. Wow. So we're going to go through the process. So I am honored to introduce Debbie Levitt of P-Type. She is the owner of P-Type, which is a digital design agency and consultancy, and Pia Mario is part of P-Type. And so when I first thought of hanging out a shingle, I created a website myself. Then somebody else redesigned it for me at my art direction, I might add, which I have none. And then Debbie saw the redesign and she said, I'm not quite sure what her exact words were, but I know that I offended her greatly.
No, nothing offends me.
Yeah, it was a painful moment. And so then she consulted with Pia Mario and they said, we can do better. Lee is better than that site. And so we need that site to reflect what Lee is trying to do in this world. And of course, my heart got all choked up and I got emotional. But that's how it works. So if you're in even if you are a individual consultant, an independent consultant or a freelancer, we do need a web presence. People need a place to go to learn about who we are, what we do, how we do it, and the impact that we've made for others. So a web presence is important. And for an independent consultant and a freelancer, that importance, the level of importance becomes greater as you are trying to compete against other ICs or even larger organizations. So branding is everything. And so I'm going to show you first what the original site looked like, the second version, and then the third iteration. And then Mario and Debbie are going to be talking about how they came to the final design decision. So if you could just hold with me for just a moment, I'm going to share my screen.
Your website is important to me. Please hold.
She also has that melodious voice that just, whatever she says, just say yes. All right. So let's talk about
my eyes.
I know. So, Debbie and Pia Mario, when you first look at this, let's go back to the home site. I did it in Wix. It is nothing exciting, as you can see. Fill in the blanks. What are your thoughts on this?
Nice hero image.
Nice image. Let's go to this. How about that? What does that tell you about the site owner or the company?
I did this myself.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm critiquing my own work here. Yours truly did this. So these are right. Right.
Imagine what it looks like on a phone. Hey, it's me.
Yes, it is you.
Imagine what it looks like on a phone.
So now, I asked earlier in the year, someone had redesigned the site and it looked like this. And so this was actually my idea to use red, black, and gray and to put a video at the top. This part wasn't my idea, but the idea, was I had no ideas. Let's put it that way. And I was, and this is where we were.
Yeah, and then I saw that.
Something like, oh, there we go, a lot of content again. But when you first saw this site, what did you guys think? The redesign.
Pierre, you go first.
Oh, I go first. Well, the first thing I noticed is this like striking color choice because one
Was
of
it
the things
striking in a good way?
yeah, striking as you wish to interpret that, but we just a few days ago, I was also telling this to Debbie just recently. I was talking to a customer on the phone, and after talking about ideas for his website and so, was like, oh, I got it. So your job is to make websites beautiful. And I said, not quite. I mean, that's something that happens accidentally, almost. but but I mean, you have some foundations of design, some taste, and add more things into the mix. But really, our first priority is to make websites clear, accessible, and readable, and easy to navigate by even non-experts. So when we first saw this website, we saw like a few red flags, not just a few red bars or buttons. And so we thought there was room for improvements. So let's put
Yeah,
it
and
this way.
my main reaction was, especially knowingly, as long as I do, and in some ways as well as I do, my thought was, I don't think this accurately represents Lee or what she can do. And Lee is always on about people's storytelling and always on about how people present themselves and your personal brand and your messaging. And then I saw this and I said, oh no, all the things this person stands for just didn't seem to come to fruition here. I just felt like with who Lee is and who Akathame is, we needed something that was just much more professional and modern and organized differently. So my thought was it just didn't represent you well.
Right.
Okay. And so when you are talking to clients like me, who are on exceedingly low budgets, if no budget, and they want to do something different, what do you tell them? First of all, I know that you guys are extremely affordable, but what do you tell them in terms of investing in this type of capability?
Yeah, I'll answer that because I usually do the billing around here. So what we remind people is that sometimes they think I can't spend a lot on my website, so I just have to find someone who will do it for free, or I have to give it to a student, or I have to give it to my cousin's manicurist's dog walker's postman, and can someone please do this? And I remind people that you can get people who know what they're doing, who just don't overcharge. So a lot of the sites that we do start in the what I'll call few $1,000s. I would say the average client spends $3,000 to $6,000 with us. Some more, maybe some a little less, but many are in that region. So people who thought websites were $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, well, they certainly can be. It depends what you needed to do. But a site like Lee's, at least the version you'll see coming up, that's at the low end of our range. And so this is not the kind of thing that should be a bank breaker. And depending upon what you do and sell, it's something that should pay for itself relatively soon.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that. So let's reveal what the site looks like today. And hold on, you've got somebody making a comment here. Hooray, I have Debbie's book in summer reading list. She is awesome. Yes, she is, Samantha.
Thank you, Samantha, who I believe I'm connected with on LinkedIn. Thank you. Yes, P-Type is my alter ego. Many of you know me as Delta CX, but I have two brands. And P-Type is the brand I use for some of our smaller web-based projects.
Yeah, I think it's also a great digital execution option, right? So when people have that strategy done, it's a great place to actually see that product come alive through P-Type, right? And then
doing what we can.
Huh?
Before we show them, why don't we tell them a little bit about the beginnings of the process?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. So let's warm people up for where we started, and I'll kind of go share this with Pier Mario. So we started by giving you a survey to fill out, which was to identify what is the mood and personality of your brand. And this is where I tell people this is the difference between a more stereotypical web designer and people who are knowledgeable, educated, practicing more on the UX user experience side of things. So, and again, we didn't do a full UX process here. We didn't do research and testing, though we love to where the budget allows. But we started by giving you a brand survey of what is the mood and personality of your website. And you sent that in. And what did I say to you, Lee, when I saw your answers?
Do it again.
I said, do it again.
It just, there was hardly anything there.
I said, I still don't think this is what you mean. And so again, what we put into websites is a lot of critical thinking, a lot of getting to know our clients and their businesses and their target audiences. And so I said, I don't think you did this right. Do it again. Now, again, someone else might have said, well, that's what she checked off. Let's go with it. But I pushed you on it. And we got the brand and the mood. And from the brand and the mood, we were able to start moving into colors. And for that, I will move over to Pier Mario because he ended up picking your color palette.
So before we even get to that piece, I want to talk about the UX piece, the research and the testing. Now, my budget would not afford for traditional user experience research or testing. However, just because you don't go through that formality of research and testing, the person that you choose to work on your website already comes with a boatload of knowledge if they've been in that practice for a long time. So when people say that user research and testing takes too long, for me, it's like, I think it depends on the initiative. It depends on what's at stake, right? That determines the level of research that needs to have happen.
Let's jump in quickly. I made my first website in 1995, and I think Pier Mario is nearly the same year. Pier Mario, you made your first website in
2001.
2001. Okay, so just a few years later. So you've been doing websites almost 20 years. I've been doing websites almost 26 years. We are not the people who picked this up a year or two ago.
Yeah, and that's just it. So you're working with people who understand interaction, who understands what works with audiences, what doesn't work with certain audiences, especially accessibility, usability and accessibility. So even though research and testing wasn't formally done on this site, beyond does everything work, right? Does it function? But no additional research was needed for this particular engagement beyond the expertise of the experts supporting the site redesign. So hopefully that gets small businesses and independent consultants thinking a little differently about what is really needed and not scared away from the potential need. So, Pier Mario, what about
if you were if you were a newer business, then I would say, well, hold on, you don't really know your customers that well. We should do at least a little research. But since you knew, so we had our expertise from our side, we counted on yours, Lee, from your side. And so we bring that together. But we've done sites in some cases for people who have been in business a long time, but we still used small research and testing methods here and there. Like we had one client who had an extensive menu with all of these mega menus. Every time you moused over something, a giant menu came up, and people found it hard to move around our site. So we did a little research and testing just around that piece. So just, so not bank blowing, but just enough to make sure that the new menus we did were going to be right for her audience. So there's always little things we can do. Over to Pier Mario for colors.
So before we get to that, are you talking about a laundry list like this that was completely disjointed?
Yeah. It wasn't that it was disjointed. It was that it was e-commerce, and this person makes their own products and has a large product line and had organized them a little bit strangely and had used some terms that meant something to her but might not mean anything to her customers. And it was hard to find different things around her site because there were just so many things in the menus. And so we helped. I think she ended up between the menus and the sub-menus, I think she had 30 things we had to fit into there, whereas you had one menu with 3 things. So she had 30 that had to be organized across different things. And that's where we used card sorting and tree testing, which is a little research, a little testing to help us make sure the menus would make sense to her customers.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, Mario, colors.
Colors.
Not these.
Well, also these actually, because you start somewhere, but you also start from what you don't want to do and what you want to avoid. So basically, we had a bit of a color palette that Lee felt was something she liked, and we started playing with those colors, and most of all the colors before getting to the final palette that we chose. One of the, if you will, most simple thing you can do with colors is to test them for color blindness. So, for example, one of the things that actually doesn't really work on this website, like on this current version that you're showing on your screen, is that if you run this through a color blindness simulator, which is available to everybody as like a quick browser extension for any browser, so you don't even need fancy softwares or so. These colors, for example, would show up as shades of gray. So where you think you're showing something bright and punchy, like those reds, you would actually see from a colorblind person perspective, you would see just a land of gray where some elements might even look not active or kind of dim, so you don't really get what you're looking for. So color blindness and accessibility needs exist, and we think that it's not just something that affects a small percentage, or in some cases, not small percentage of people.
Yeah, color blindness is 10% of people. 8% of men and 2% of women will see reds and greens and some other colors, sometimes as shades of gray or pewter. And so some of the reds and greens can be lost on people.
So I want to talk to you about, I mean, PM Audio, Debbie, they were telling me, I was getting feedback on that said, don't worry about that 8 or 10%. I was actually getting that feedback.
That's middle finger to humans. That doesn't make sense, because then does that mean if X% of people are blind, we don't care what happens to them? If X% of people have motion difficulties, we don't care about them? You know, we're reminded from the training we got in accessibility that disability is a population that all of us will end up in if we live long enough. And even some people younger. I mean, you think about your mom, Lee, who I get to know through your Instagram posts, you know, that while it seems to be made of metal, you know, she certainly has some issues. And hypothetically, if we put her in front of her website, there might be things that don't make sense to her, that she doesn't see right, or maybe she, you know, I don't know if she has any motion difficulties yet, but many people, even people at any age, can have motion difficulties. I know people my age and younger with multiple sclerosis. And so accessibility has to do with seeing, hearing, moving, thinking, and feeling. We don't really smell websites. So we don't taste websites, but everything else is involved. And so anything that has to do with different vision issues, hearing issues, motion issues, things like that, we have to take those into consideration, especially if we want to claim we're empathetic or empathic, whichever version you use. If we want to claim we care about our customers, then we have to design for all of them.
And so it's interesting because when I wasn't that eloquent in my response to that person, but their argument to me was, you have to design for your customer, right? And so they're thinking that it's a senior level person of an organization, C-suite, directors, VPs, SVPs.
Who could be colorblind.
Nope. In their mind, that 10% are just so minor that they wouldn't even think, it would not come to mind. So that
Yeah, none of them have they magically all don't have hearing disabilities. None of them wear glasses. None of them have color blindness. Pier Mario, what are you saying?
Yeah, you just touched something I was about to say, because sometimes when the discussion ends up about accessibility and designing for accessibility needs, things get quickly very extreme in examples. So you think about various forms of diseases and conditions which can be very severe and are real. So we should, yes, design for those people. But one thing that really struck me and that I use as an example is that 2 years ago, we went for accessibility training at WebAIM in Utah. And WebAIM is one of the authorities in accessible internet since the beginning of the internet, like since US robotics modem, basically. And so our lessons, our course started by our instructor asking, like, does anybody here use any assistive technologies for their daily life or their computer? And so just in a class of like 50 persons, maybe 5, 6 people raised their hands because they had some sort of condition. Could be a hearing aid, could be anything. And because other thing, not all disabilities are visible. Like you can't always see. So that's one thing. So we just had these 5 hands raised, and okay. Next question. Does anybody here wear glasses? And we were like, boom, like 70% of the room wear glasses. So if I take my glasses off, what I see on the screen now, it's a beautiful blur of some colors. So I take this into account because you design for somebody who has some accessibility need, but we also design for our future selves. And even if we hopefully don't end with like critical condition or something that is really serious, your eyesight gets a little weak with age. So it's not always great to read websites when you have like 8-point fonts on a bright background, or so. It's so you're actually allowed to have fonts which are readable and can be a little bigger, so it doesn't make your website.
I'm going to jump in here and say a couple of other things quickly, especially about accessibility, which is its own topic. But also, the amount of red on this site made me feel like everything was a warning, an error message. It was all alarm bells. These are colors that we often use on websites for warning. You made a mistake. Error. And then the other thing I want to tell people about is Microsoft certainly isn't perfect, but they've got some accessibility guidelines that remind us that some accessibility issues are permanent, temporary, and situational. And one example that they use as an example is a permanent disability could be someone is missing one arm for whatever reason. A temporary version of that is someone broke their arm and it's immobilized in a cast. That person now has to use their phone, the web, the world with one hand. And then the situational, they show a drawing, these are all drawings, of someone holding a baby. And in that case, they can only use the world with one hand because we must hold this baby. You can't just drop the baby. So, and you might not be able to hold the baby and do 2 hands. So we have to remember that it's not just, accessibility is not just about disabilities, or as Pier Mario said, people sometimes jump to extremes like, oh, blind people. Well, hold on. There's a whole spectrum out there of people who have accessibility needs or who qualify for the ADA, which which in America is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we are just considering them, and it's the right thing to do.
So when you look at a site such as Akathame's, it's a startup company, a company of one trying to be, something in the future. Even if the company is small, and right now the target audience is in the initial stages of being contacted and engaged with.
Let's show them the good one.
Yes, and how important though you're telling me that it's important at any stage of a business's life cycle to start with accessibility, not get accessibility as you get bigger.
You can't just sprinkle it on later. It's not about that. And that's certainly not going to check off the diversity and inclusion box to be like, oh yeah, we ran a couple of scripts and we think it's okay for blind people. That's crap, and that's not okay. And we have to have it baked in from the beginning to make sure that these things work for people who navigate with keyboards because they don't use a mouse. If you are showing a lot of videos, you have to have captions that you did with transcripts that people can read, because people may want to read the transcript and not sit through a video that they can't hear. So there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration for the conceptualization of the site, as well as its ongoing maintenance. And these things aren't necessarily difficult or expensive. They're just things we should be doing because these are our customers. We can't pretend that blind people don't order pizzas. We can't pretend that people with hearing or speech disabilities don't work in HR. They do. So these are your customers. And as Pier Mario said, there's also people with what we typically call the hidden disabilities, because on the ADA list, there's cancer, there's depression, there's autism. These are all things that can affect how people use phones, websites, everything. So we have to actually care for other humans and design for everyone.
At any stage of the business life cycle, and this is what I'm really trying to stress with small to medium-sized businesses, getting off. If you're going to start something, start it as best as you can. All right, here's the
don't hold up the middle finger to any potential customer.
This is the redesign, and I have to tell you, when we first
scroll down,
when we first went through the redesign, I mean, I had no idea what to expect, except I loved the color palettes, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is incredible. What a difference. And I think that a big part of this process is not only understanding that that we're looking at interaction and usability and accessibility, but I mean, it's not painful to look at anymore. It's just not. So I definitely wanted a darker color on the top. And that's all, I like rich colors. And so instead of going with the black, they went with a beautiful deep eggplant color, which is just stunning to me with the other combinations on here. But tell me how you got to this point. And Pier Mario, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, we both sent you some color palettes, but Pier Mario's was the winner. So I'll let him talk about color choice.
Oh, it's really, I thought I'd already covered this, but basically we really started from what you liked and your, even your emotions about colors, like what do you really like, what do you want to communicate, because when we see websites like your previous one, we really didn't think that was you. So you are clear, straight to the point. You communicate well with your customers. You are chatty, but you say the right thing. So we wanted your website to reflect that. So the colors were part of this, but it's really, I think it's mostly about the quality and layout of information, because you have to also there's more space. The bullet points, like bullet points, are one of the most overlooked things and seem like not cool design. But actually, when we read things, sometimes we just skim through content, and bullet points are one of the things that catches your attention, because you have a few things that you can just quickly skim and see if this is something that you're interested into. So it's also about how quickly can can we have
The blog.
the blog, soon to be more populated.
Yes. So I do
Yeah,
want to
and
stay out here for a little bit. I want to talk about this. So typically you don't see underscores anymore. You scroll over and you get the finger, the connect. Why are you, and I noticed that the color changes and there's an underscore on this. Why did you go with that approach?
Oh, basically, it's really web design 101, and it was something that was accurate and applied to web design in 1997 and 2001 when we started, and it's still relevant because websites since the beginning had underlines that told people, hey, this is a link, this is a word you can click on, and it leads you somewhere else. Non-tech savvy people need this kind of visual help to know what they are supposed to do on their website. Not everybody that is going on your website or any website is a 15-year-old that is born with tablets and internet by default, but it's also somebody who's not maybe just not a tech enthusiast. Some people don't really need a lot of internet in their lives. So the day they need a website, we want to make sure that this website is easy enough even for non-experts. Just as
if I can jump in. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, what I was going to say is, you go ahead. Sorry, delay.
No. I was just quickly adding. Yeah, I was just quickly adding that it's also what you do with content. Like, you can talk and write your website content in a clear, easy to understand language, or write hyper technical or hyper specific copy that sounds cool but is hard to understand, or uses a language that triggers not positive emotion into your audience. So in the same way you write thinking about your target audience and your visitors, at the same level you make websites possibly as friendly as possible. And back to Debbie.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that for text links, the goal is for them to have contrast. You just want them to stand out from other texts so that people know that there is an action here. And very often people take off the underlines and they just use a contrasting color. But the problem we ran into on this site was that we had some light colors, we had some dark colors. And so then we started asking ourselves, okay, do we come up with some sort of color that works on the light colors and something that works on the dark colors? And so we were kind of batting this around of how did we want to do it. And then, as Pier Mario said, when you think about some of the people who are working in companies, in HR, in recruiting, sometimes, sure, they can use a computer and they know how to use the web, but these aren't necessarily the most tech savvy people or the most comfortable people, and they will certainly be familiar with the underline thing. And the problem is, if we don't use the right colors, if there aren't really good contrasting colors for your palette, then people look at your text and they miss it. When you try to do a red link in a black paragraph, a colorblind person might miss that red link, even though you think, wow, it'll really pop. So I don't always do underlines on text for websites. websites. But I think in this case, we chose it for a little bit for the audience and just a little bit to make sure that the link and the actions weren't getting lost on the background colors.
And so there was another treatment in here that I thought was cool that I hadn't seen before. Of course, I don't get out much, and I think people who know me realize that. But look what happens when you scroll over Let's Get Started. Contact us. I've not seen that before. The actual button changes, it gets broader, and there's a little, like arrow there. And so,
right.
Yeah, I'd not seen that before. So
shiny object.
Yeah, I've been clicking on it all the time. So
yeah, and you can click it
I hope
many
your
times.
potential customers will.
Okay,
I hope your potential customers will.
There's something else that attracted me to this that got my attention is that as you scroll down on the page, the logo in the upper left-hand corner resizes. It takes up less space. So what's the purpose behind that? Because I like it. I mean, I just don't know is it because it takes up less space? I don't know.
This is what we would call kind of a pinned element. It stays in one place even when you scroll. Sometimes people see that on the bottom right, like a chat with us kind of thing. So sometimes things do get pinned on web pages, and that's can be really great for function if it's not annoying and keeps popping stuff up. And really the reason why, so I like to have those on sites in general because we always want that navigation to be easy. I think a lot of people do not want to scroll back up to the top of the page to see what's going on your site and pick another page. But what's nice about the way that Pier Mario tends to do sites is he's really trying to think about, well, when we're at the top of the page, we can make the logo more bold and the header a little bit larger. But once people are scrolling, that's not where their attention is. So let's bring it down a little bit and kind of move it out of the way so that we've got more space for people to explore the content.
So we can see why I didn't do a good job. I mean, that's pretty self-evident at this point. So, but this is beautiful. Is there anything else that we've got about 6 more minutes so that I've reserved with you folks, because I know that your time is very precious. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about in terms of how you came up with this site or the functionality of it, or future state or anything like that before we move on to the last piece?
Well, I've got a couple of notes. Mario, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, one of the thing I had and we had in mind while designing the website is that, as you said, there are things you see on the website once you start using it, and they just make sense. Like, you don't need to be an expert in websites to think that this is readable or this is pleasing to the eye. So sometimes people say, like, I'm not an expert in this or that, or I'm not the person who you should talk to. And actually, you are a user. So if we are user-centric, we should listen and design for the people we design for, the people that are going to use our product. And Akathame is all about inclusion, and we wanted to see these values also reflected in the way that the website is easy to access and easy to read for everybody. So that was really as simple as that. So there's not a lot of magic tricks, but good practice, good UX, because that's what we do, and just attention to details wherever possible.
Yeah, and what I was going to add, what I was going to add there, was that one thing that I think was important to the process and as part of our style as a company is to push back on some stuff. You know, there were some photos, Lee, that you had suggested that we said, we don't think that's the right photo for this spot. So we're thinking critically and thinking about your storytelling and your audience at every word. I mean, we read through all the text. I went back to at some points and said, I don't like the text here. I'm going to change this. How about I edit this? I moved some things around. And you could always write back and say, no, put it back. But we're always trying to make what our customers give us even better if possible. And so it's really about that critical thinking, because I think a lot of people calling themselves web designers or web companies, they would say to you, Lee, what do you want? And you'd be like, I want this website with this information and I like these colors. And they'll go, great, we'll catch you next Tuesday. And we really see ourselves more as partners who are trying to get into that whole mood and personality of the business. So we pushed back on some of your copy, we pushed back on some of your photos. And obviously, this is a site where there aren't a lot of photos. You don't have products for sale. You don't have an office with people you're trying to show off. Pier Mario does a lot of sites for architects and professional commercial photographers and restaurants. And so he tends to do these very photo heavy websites with a lot of really big, beautiful professional photos, and they tell the story. But because of what Lee's doing, unfortunately or fortunately, the words have to tell the story. And we're hoping that they're interesting enough that people will read them. And we really couldn't fill the site with a lot of photos of the Mediterranean.
No Mediterranean here. So you were actually getting to the point I was trying to make, that as a small business owner, as a startup, independent consultant, freelancer, the last thing that you want to do is spend less time selling and more time trying to figure things out. But as that person who is working to build her business, this time that was spent on figuring all this stuff out with Debbie and Pia Mario, what it's going to do is elevate the perception of capabilities and future state of organizations. Had you seen, if you look at this page compared to this.
Well,
right. I mean, the solutions tell the story, right? So this is how a solution should be communicated. It's
crying.
Yeah, it's better. So I also want to talk about something else that's also on independent contractors' minds. It's not just the getting the site up, but it's the maintaining the site. So you guys decided to do this in WordPress. Why?
Because WordPress is one of the most widely used content management systems. But beside the numbers, especially in the newer versions of WordPress, WordPress got more and more simple as time went by. So it's very easy to maintain, and it's relatively inexpensive to maintain. You just need a good hosting and keeping all the parts of the website up to date so that the website stays fast. Hey, what about this website?
Hey, this is also on WordPress. What do you know?
Yeah. So it's easy for customers to maintain their websites. And actually, one of the next things we're going to do with Lee is schedule like a talk, which could be like, a training that like in an hour we will probably cover even more than what she actually needs. Because what I say to customers is that if you can write an email in Gmail, you can probably post things in WordPress. It's really not.
Yeah, and Lee won't be able to change the design or some of the colors herself. All that's going to kind of stay as the shell, but she should be able to make changes to web pages. She'll be able to do blog posts. So we always try to make sure all of our clients are and feel independent and can just come back to us only for big changes or new designs or something that feels over their head. But otherwise, she should be independent.
And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that, you have to be able to be agile yourself and interested. If you're a freelancer and you've got a website, you have to take an interest in that website and figure out how to keep it current and how to keep it relevant for your clients. So that's a big deal. So we're going to close out. I do want to share P-Type's homepage. And you know what? I did not realize this. I thought it was more of an execution, but this really is strategy and execution. It is a full service UX and product design agency. So I can't think, I think this is beautiful. I would love to show some of the other sites that you guys have done. I mean, look at the brands that P-type is worked on, I would have never in a million years gone to even ask people like Debbie and Pierre Mario to work on my little site because it was so insignificant. And they offered it. So, see, I'm going to get emotional again.
Yeah, well, I can tell you another site we did recently was the woman with the menus, though she's gone and changed the menus since and she made them crazy again, but we love her anyway. It's scrubsbody.com, and Scrubs has a Z. Scrubsbody with a Z. And let's see if she likes to go in and make changes herself, so we never know what we're going to see when we pull up this site. But this is generally, she added some of that blurb there, but this is our artist had designed some of that top piece, and we had designed some of these other pieces, and we recently went through this for her and did another accessibility check to make sure some of the things that are in there are accessible. She had the photos, so she had like things that were marble. She has a real physical store, so she wanted things that evoked the type of natural skincare that she's doing. And funny enough, she ended up with she demanded that purple. You ended up violet and purple for a different reason. She demanded that one. Ooh, we didn't put the pop up there.
Yeah.
So we do have some clients who, of course, we go in and try to make something beautiful, and then they go, "Oh, WordPress is easy to use. I'll make some changes myself." And then, of course, it's out of our control. But we always do the best we can.
How many people call you back and say, I just completely demolished your beautiful work?
Pier Mario, how many people in the last year have you restored their websites? 5?
Actually not. Yeah, but actually not because they destroyed their websites, but because they either forgot to renew their hosting, or usually very, very like basic reasons, but sometimes it's just lack of care for their website. Like we like to design website, but we also like and encourage our customers to keep their websites alive and communicating what they want to send out in the world. So we hope you'll do a lot of blogging on your website and add all the content that will tell the story and
we should pull up a Pier Mario classic. Does Saint Hubertus still look like what you made for them?
Oh, that was years ago.
Did they change it?
Well, no, it's still that website, but it's like a 4-year-old website.
Oh, but it was so beautiful.
Oh well.
We could show them Tiziano if Lee doesn't mind a couple of extra minutes. Something.
No, wait. I did the wrong thing. Okay.
What's the name of the site?
I think he's sending it to you in the private chat.
Okay, I'm sending you the link. The second one is the right one.
Okay.
If you ever feel the urge to find a little hut just overlooking the Matterhorn in Italy, and
oh, this is crazy.
Yeah, so this is a hotel in northern Italy, and Pier Mario did this site, and his cousin did the photography.
This is unbelievable.
So you can see that Pier Mario's style is typically a lot more photos and a lot of bold use of photos, which I love, but some of our clients aren't always a match to that style. Like Lee, it wouldn't have made sense for your website to look like this. But a hotel with a spa and conference space and things like that, especially this is like a 4 or 5 star hotel, they're looking to tell their story more in photos than with words. And of course, this is in Italian.
Okay, and I'm going to
they changed
right there because that looks delicious.
Yeah, it's a former client, so we don't have any discounts to offer you or ourselves. But for companies where telling the story in photos makes sense, travel, tourism, architecture, things like that, we tend to go much more visual and photo based than we did with your site.
Yes.
But you can see that even if you never stay there, you just want to explore it. And I think that's what makes the website work. You feel like, I want to explore this.
Okay. Oops. What happened to P-type?
Oops, not .com, pty.pe. I picked the domain that is the shortest I could get. It's pty.pe. Somebody else was sitting on the .com and wanted like $8,000, and I said, "Oh, I can do better." pty.pe.
It's coming. There we go.
I swear my site is still working, everybody. I am in business. I remember one time in the early 2000s, my website went down for like 6 hours because of my hosting company. I was getting tweets. Maybe this was mid 2000s, like 2006. My website went down for 6 hours. I was getting tweets. Are you still in business? And I was like, wow, you cannot have a website go down for 6 hours in this town without people thinking you have shuttered for good. I'd better pick a better hosting company.
Wow. All right. And so, Debbie and PM Audio, I can't, there are just no words to express my gratitude for what you did. And you know, in full disclosure, Debbie is one of my business partners. So when I do come across opportunities that require user experience expertise, she is the first person that I will go to and say, how do we handle this? She and PM Audio, hopefully as well, are also going to be part of the expert interview process. So as we get opportunities in the executive placement or in the direct hire area, I rely on experts to do that screening. So I think that's really important because I can't possibly know everything, but I do know how to represent the hell out of you people. So again, yes, I do. Many thanks to both of you, and many continued well wishes. And I will keep you posted. I think the next step for this site, for the Akathame site, is to realize revenue and impact. And I will keep you abreast of all of that throughout my efforts. So thank you all for joining.
Yes.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And if you guys are watching post the live broadcast, if you have any questions or want to connect with PM Audio or Debbie via LinkedIn, they are more than welcome. They are more than happy to connect with you. And if you do want to work with either of them, their information is on the P-type website. Just contact in any one of the areas.
Just book some time, and you'll be talking directly to me. And consultations are free. So let's talk about your project.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. PM Audio and Debbie, stay on the line for a second. And bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.